everybody. Hello. Are we ready to start? Are we ready to start? So, first of all, apologies for the delay in starting. We have a few technical issues to resolve to begin with, and also apologies to Lynne. So, from the front, we have Claire Hollands, and her role is, well, she has two roles in fact. Waiting advocacy, and also working as a project manager for Salford. For those services there, so a dual role, and the event has been arranged by Salford Deaf Advocacy Project in that particular team. So I've been involved. We have Danielle, she's around somewhere. She's also been working on this project alongside I. Additionally, we have Tony, who's our Salford advocate. That's at the front. And the aim of this event, well, we thought it was rather crucial that we have a discussion about where is the interpreter now. So we've invited two people to come along to have this discussion, to have an interview discussion. So we have Arbab, and we also have Lynne Stewart. So before we make a start, I think it's kind of important that we let you know that this is going to be a live Facebook event, so there's going to be a voiceover for you in the room. There will be captions on this afterwards. So if we could have silence in the room to begin with. If you do want to raise a question, or you're not happy about being on the live, ask somebody to do the translation of the question for you. So if you do have a question from the floor, Arbab will actually then repose the question, so it's seen for those people on the live. Okay, so we could ask Arbab and Lynne to join me at the front, please.
Hello.
Hello. You well?
I am.
I'm Arbab. I've invited Lynne to come over to have a discussion. As we know, well, we've known for quite some time now, we went to the university together. It's lovely to see you.
That's cheeky bugger. Talking about me.
I was just saying that as a bit of an excuse, but I know we were really keen to begin with. What's your name?
Let me introduce myself. I'm Lynne. This is my sign name. A lot of people have asked the question why I use this as a sign name. I was actually born in Jersey. I'm not a walker. I don't go out walking a lot. So a lot of people forget your name. So they all know me as Lynne with a Jersey. So because I'm from Jersey originally.
Thanks. Thanks for coming over, Lynne. I actually invited you over to talk about where is the interpreter campaign, that hashtag we had. I'm sure a lot of you have been really keen to know what's been going on in the background for a while. So I thought, let's have a conversation with you, Lynne. Why did you set this all up?
Where do I start? You may remember last year, the first time it came to, you know where coronavirus started, right back at the beginning. We had some news events popping up on the news. It was back in March 2020, I think. And on the 9th of March, I sat down, tuned into the news, and I didn't pay much attention to it, I'll be honest with you. It wasn't really subtitled and there was no interpreter, so it was. And then I went over to BBC One, I clicked through all the channels, and it was the same. So the information was being presented as a report from the government. And I'm thinking, this must be serious. This must be serious. And it started to make me feel quite uneasy. I went on Twitter and I asked the question, where's the interpreter? Where is the interpreter for these broadcasts? And it grew and it grew. I think I was a bit of a fool, really. I shouldn't have said anything on Twitter, should I? Because it started the domino effect. But it hit me hard. I thought, I've had enough of this, putting up with lack of access. And I thought, it's not just me, is it? This is serious, and I want to know what is actually being said.
I'm sure there's a lot of people in the community who have suffered likewise with, a kind of a barrier. You've made that first step to lift that barrier. So, Lynne, I wondered, could you actually explain what made you feel so proactive about this and setting up this particular campaign? What was it that incited you to do it?
Well, I'll be honest, there was no plan. Okay, I've made it up as I've gone along. In terms of the legal side of it, that is just how the dominoes went. So back in there, I just posted something to Twitter, and I was asking for information. I wanted to know what was going on. If people were, being ill, people were dying. People were panicking, and they were asking for help. the information just wasn't out there. And I think, you know, with the news, you know, it was all in English, there were subtitles, and I thought, hang on a minute, you know, this is a life or death situation here, and the lack of that information is putting us at risk.
Barriers were there, weren't they?
That was March, and in March, every day there was something, and I put something up on Twitter every day in March, asking the question, where is the interpreter? Where is our access? And that became a hashtag, and that's how it all started. People joined that hashtag, where's the interpreter, or interpreter, you know, where's the interpreter? It wasn't just me, it was everybody else. They were all asking the same question by using that hashtag, and it got stronger and stronger and stronger. And I thought, well, okay, you know, it's not going to get any better, so we need to do something. And I'd had enough. I'd had enough at that point.
So you had to become more thick-skinned going through this particular campaign. And as you said, when you instigated it, you didn't really know what kind of work would be involved, how much of it as it grew. Can you talk about that, please?
Do you want to know the truth? Okay, I'll share the truth with you. It's been a lot of hours, and it's constant. You know, it's not just about, you know, turning up with an interpreter and meeting the legal team. You know, you might remember last year, there was the 4 rules that you were allowed to do during lockdown. You know, you were allowed to exercise for an hour, you were allowed to go out, you could go out for medication, you could go out for work. So there was 4 things you were allowed to do. And I thought to myself, do the deaf people know this? Or are they still going out in the street, you know, meeting other people, meeting other deaf people, and thought, or maybe going out and thinking, well, where is everybody? You know, why is nobody out on the streets? People just didn't know what to do. And I panicked a little bit. So I set up 2 Facebook groups at that time, you know, and it was about, I thought, I'm just trying to get the information out there, you know. So there was a couple of pages. One was deaf stay at home, and the other page was interpreter volunteers. So because we weren't allowed to visit our family as part of the rules, but people like their parents were in care homes, but deaf people didn't know they couldn't visit the care homes. So they needed to have access to information via the use of interpreters. And just let me know that a lot of volunteer interpreters came forward and helped with this situation. So people were contacting me, asking for an interpreter. I was able to then remotely speak to the interpreter and get them booked in and to work with the deaf person on a voluntary basis. So for example, there were a lot of deaths in care homes. That was, you know, that was a pandemic in itself. And people just didn't have the information.
Did you not feel the weight of responsibility of that?
Well, I was actually working as well at the same time. I didn't have an office. Well, I did have an office, but you know, I was putting work to one side. Then the government made an announcement that we all had to stay at home, and I was like, right, okay, what do I do? So I took my office upstairs. I actually had 3 screens, 3 monitors, and a phone I was working to, because I kept one eye on that, wanting deaf people to make those requests that needed help. I was still doing my work on my computer, and I had my eye on another screen, getting in contact with the interpreters and putting them into contact with the deaf people who were making requests for voluntary interpreters. So that was a lot of work. In total it was 4 screens at any one time. You know, even at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, requests were coming through.
So many
I
hours.
just didn't stop. I just lived upstairs in that office.
That's hard.
I just wanted to help.
So is that how you kind of linked up to the next part of it, where you actually brought about the hashtag, or where's the interpreter, or is that not linked to that?
It is associated with it. They just run together, really. So around the April time, you might remember that for 2 weeks, so from March through to the 16th, there was no interpreters. So people were not having interpreters. There was no interpreters on screen or in vision for any news reports or anything. There was nothing on websites. So organisations started to look at this and go, right, okay, and they started doing their own posts. We had Sign Health, Gloucestershire Deaf Association, and a few other deaf associations, I think RAD as well. They were getting people to do pieces to camera and post it. And I was looking at this, and I thought, this isn't right. Why should these organisations take on this responsibility? This is a government responsibility. You know, they have a duty. They have a duty. We're happy to help, and people were more than happy to help. But really, we should have been focusing on what the government wasn't providing. That's where our anger should be. You know, and then somebody said to me, well, maybe you should get in touch with a solicitor. That was somebody else's, because the government were not listening. We were asking, you know, the news, Channel 4, they were all like, oh, right, not too sure what to do. But they didn't provide, even though they were asked to provide. So we had different organisations were all involved with this, and we approached a solicitor.
So it's more of a networking kind of things, and that evolved from there, people coming forward for that?
It was. People were very, very kind. They were very helpful in writing letters, because, you know, and not knowing which solicitors to approach. I think there were 16 organisations in total who had written to the government and saying, what about access for deaf people? Deaf people are not understanding what's going on. Where's the sign language? So that information, I thought, well, actually, you know what? Once these organisations have sent these letters, I thought we're done. But they said they couldn't. They couldn't provide an interpreter because the room was too small, where the press releases were from. You know, Downing Street was too small. I said, what do you mean it's too small? I thought the government in the past, when they've done news reports in the past, they've had lots of people sit in the audience and reporters asking questions. So the room must be, you know, a substantial size. So we said, no, we disagree with that. We don't think the room is too small. It's very simple. You know, just remove some of the reporters. They came back and said, no, we can't. We can't. Because it's the 2-metre rule. And I was like, what? I was left scratching my head here.
So, like, you know, regionally we saw something different in Scotland and Wales. We had the interpreters in the same room as the presenters giving out information.
In Wales, in Northern Ireland, Australia. Go on, anybody got any other countries that they said, yeah, lots and lots and lots of other countries. Yes, yeah, that's right. Lots of other countries provided it. So what was the problem with the British government? I just started to feel that they talked about the room being too small. I thought, well, that isn't a problem. 2-metre rule. I'm thinking, well, everybody else is providing interpreters. You can do your tests, you can do your PCRs, you can still keep your distance. But, you know, we always had 3 people in the room for the British broadcasts. One more, surely that's no harm, is it? They could remove one and replace them with an interpreter. I thought, is it a financial problem? And I thought, is it a distance problem? And I think maybe it's an attitude problem. And that's what I come to realise. They didn't want somebody stealing their thunder, I think.
So you think they maybe saw the interpreters as a potential distraction?
Yeah. We were hidden, weren't we? We were seen as different. We were put on a digital channel, you know, an interpreter in a little small box at the bottom of the screen. But we didn't feel included, did we? None of us did. You know, access was seen as a small problem, and it wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough. We are part of this country. We are all human beings, and we should be treated equally. You know, we're proud of our language, and we want to show people our language. We're not invisible. We're not hidden. You know, we're not ashamed of who we are. You know, give us a no, and we will fight you on that.
So that kind of links back to something I was thinking about previously, where the government was looking at the Equalities Act. Do you think that's strong enough? Does it wield enough power?
Well, we put this argument forward. We looked at the different sections in the Equalities Act, and we talk about reasonable adjustments, and we said these are the answers, this is a reasonable adjustment, but the Equalities Act isn't powerful enough. It failed us. The DDA failed us as well. You know, both of those legislations have failed us.
Do you think it was done just to kind of keep us happy, and that it didn't have enough teeth in the Act to actually do anything of importance?
Well, no, the Act works, but for pieces of equipment. But when you talk about BSL, it doesn't mention it, does it, within the Act? So we need you know, it to be legalised really, and we need BSL to be put in there as a word.
Yeah.
It's our language. It's our language. We have a right to that. You know, we've fought for many, many years, haven't we? You know, for different governments, we fought and fought and fought. and nothing has moved forward. And and I've had enough of us suffering. Suffering has been enough. This generation has had enough. I think it's time now for things to change. I think we draw a line under it.
Yeah. So, what was did you suggest as the next point of call? You've had solicitors involved, so what's the next point for you?
It's a very, very big challenge. We're looking at law. I'm not really clued up about law. I don't really understand it. I did meet with a solicitor and had those discussions, and they were lovely. They're very kind, committed and generous. And they said it was quite simple. The solution would be just for them to provide an interpreter. Just get the interpreter to walk up and do their job. That was the solution. But through discussions, we wrote lots of letters and they went back into to the minister. In the end, nothing moved forward. But around July time, other information was coming out. So in Downing Street, number 9. So number 10 is where it all started, but then they were going to move to number 9 because they were having a refit with new technology in a bigger room. And I thought, finally, they're going to think about us. A bigger room, we can get in there, there will be space for the interpreter, there'll be a little place where they can stand. And I waited with a little bit of excitement for July to come. And was told that they weren't providing interpreters for deaf people. That wasn't part of the plan. We thought that because they were providing it in other countries, they would do exactly the same. It would be a daily announcement from the government, and I thought, right, okay, we're there. We're going to get access. That'll be October. That's when the room will go live. So we waited, but they said to us before then, it's not in the plan. And I said, well, what do you mean? There's no plan for the interpreter. So I had those discussions with the minister. I didn't want to challenge them. I approached it in a soft manner, having an open discussion with them. And I said, these are the solutions. We've got a list of interpreters who are ready to do this assignment, and the room is now big enough when you move to number 9.
So that means after that, he was really upset about that. How were you doing that kind of formal definition?
I was livid. I was livid. I said, we've tried this, we've tried that, and we've tried that. So,
what's that?
I asked for a judicial review. So that was the start of the process. That was in December. So you have to apply for a judicial review, but we needed £20,000 before we could do that. So, to campaign and request things from the government, we actually have to pay for it. So we were literally paying for our own access needs.
So how did you raise or even begin to raise that kind of money?
Well, I thought it was a bit of a stupid plan, and I said, well, let's go on
A walk?
A sponsored walk. I'm not a fit woman. I'm sorry, I'm not good at walking any great distances. I don't do any exercise. But I thought about it and I thought, well, how can we raise this money? Can we sell cakes? We can't because of social distancing. We can't meet each other. Can we set up a festival? We can't. We can't do bingo. What are the other alternatives?
Yeah, because of social distancing, you couldn't do those things, could you?
We couldn't. But you may remember the 3 deaf men who did the charity walk from Scotland right down the whole of England. Yeah? Yeah? Do you remember that? That was the sign for it. And it just came to me. And I got in touch with Mark. He was one of the guys. We had a talk. And he said, well, why don't you do the same walk as we did? I said, you're joking. I'm not walking that far. That's impossible. It's much too far for me to walk from the north of Scotland down to John O'Groats. Never, never, never. Or all the way right down to... I thought, let's make it a bit smaller. Let's do it, but let's make it smaller. The plan was to go from Wales, initially, to London.
So, that should have been, so what changed, what happened?
But Wales is providing good access, see, so that's why we chose Wales. They have in-vision interpreters. It was strange, wasn't it, what was happening in England? Or, we're all part of the UK, but you go over the border and they have access, you come over our border and we don't get access. But their First Minister, Mark Drakeford, the Welsh Minister...
Mark?
He was the one who arranged it. They had exactly the same
in Scotland. That's right,
yeah, Nicola Sturgeon in Scotland. What they did, because of the 2 metre rule, they actually started doing videos of interpreters, and then they actually supported us. So they did a video with an interpreter to support our campaign. They said, why don't you start here, where they're providing access, where they have the right attitude. So that's what we said. So we turned the sign on its side and went, right, okay, so, you know, because it's a positive thing, and the little finger is a negative thing, and it's not so good, so that'll end up in London, basically. But what happened? Wales locked down. But Mark, he was a driver, and he worked out the route of what we could take. And I said to him, Mark, I don't want any hills. I want it as flat as you can make it for me. So the flatter the better. So when you're working on the route, you know, I don't want to be on motorways. I don't want cars flying past me at 90 miles an hour. So he worked out the route for me. And the problem was, Mark, who was arranging it all, was living in Wales. Wales were in lockdown, so he couldn't leave Wales. So, luckily, I got out 2 days before. He slept, and Mark got out as well 2 days before, sorry, and he slept in his van in Gloucestershire. And then we made a decision. We said, right, okay, tell you what, let's start in Gloucestershire. We're here, let's start here.
So from there to, there was a lot more plans involved. Was it smooth in terms of planning?
Just to let you know, the organisation was amazing. Everybody was on board with it. It felt like the deaf community were back together. We were there to support each other. We had energy. You know, we all knew about the virus. We were committed. The team were committed, and it started there. So we went from Gloucestershire to London.
So how long did it take altogether?
Well, Mark worked it out. He's very, very fit, Mark is, just to let you know. He says it's about 26 miles. Like, what? You're going to kill me. I can't walk 26 miles. That's impossible. I do a mile. If I do a mile a day, can I do a mile a day? He says, no, you'll do it in a week. I said, no, I need 2 weeks. I said, I need at least 2 weeks. I said, look at me. Mark, look at me. I need to do it in short bursts. So he worked it out, and it was about 10 to 12 miles a day, and we worked for over 2 weeks. It was about 19 miles-ish on average.
Where did you sleep then? You know, how did you manage that? You know, were you in the cabin? What was going on with that?
Well, in my mind, I thought I'd be in a lovely hotel. I would have the most comfortable mattress going. But that plan failed. I'll just make you aware that plan did fail. Because of coronavirus, it was actually hard to find hotels. We had a group of deaf people, there were 6 of us, and they were saying, you can't do this, you have a maximum of 4, that's all you can have, it's 4 people at any one time. 4 men, 1 lady, right, okay, so it's 4 of us, okay. I thought, yeah, okay, 4 guys and myself, I feel safe, I'm protected here. But I thought, where are we going to sleep? So they made a decision, somebody who had a van, you know, a camper van.
You slept in that? Wow.
Yeah.
You was really excited about it, yeah?
Yeah. My idea of comfort come crashing down. It wasn't the most comfortable.
Was you cold?
A camper van. Okay, I'll phrase it as it was a good,
would you do it again?
It was a good experience. It was an experience, okay. I'm not sure what. So there was 4 of us in total, like I say, 3 men and myself, and then Mark as well. Martin Houston, sorry. So it was best for us to pair up. So if anybody was ill, then when somebody could go on, we could carry on with the walk as well. Does that make sense? So we walked in and somebody was driving the camper van as well. It was very well organised, very well organised.
So there was a lot of work involved with this. You finally got to London. So what happened? No, when you got to London, you know, the walk was successful. What happened next? You know, did you approach Downing Street? Tell me that. What happened next?
Well, we were in Slough, and as we were getting nearer and nearer, it was a very flat area, and it just went on and on and on. When the camera went on, I smiled. When the camera went off, I was miserable. But coronavirus at that time was getting worse and worse and worse. They were having local lockdowns. So I know London was going to go into a lockdown, and we were trying to work it out. I was very grateful for the other 3 guys who was with me. We had Mark, and Martin. MH. That's how I remember them. It's very confusing.
Bizarre.
But we had a discussion, and we were checking the news, we were getting the updates, we were being told by them, because we had to change our plans. You know, we were still heading towards London. You know, we said, right, you need to go that way. We're like, no, we'll go this way around that motorway. You know, because they said, well, actually, we might need to go this way around, even though it adds to the mileage. I just kept walking. I let them work on the logistics. I just kept going and facing forward. We arrived in London.
Are you worn out?
Well, it was a bit overwhelming, because from Gloucester to London, I thought, our campaign has not done anything. Yes, don't get me wrong, as a team, we worked brilliantly and we raised the money we needed to. You know, and but we wanted to make an impact on the hearing community. I felt it hadn't worked. What was the point of this war? You know, what are we doing wrong here? You know, we're working hard. I was saying, I'm here, we're here, we're scared, we have a family, we're frightened of what's happening, you know, with everybody. But it was as if people didn't care.
I can understand, you know, from a personal perspective, when we were doing the walk, I was checking daily. I was still at work and checking my mobile to see what was going on. I'm sure the rest of us in the community were the same, and also interpreters. It was really interesting.
People on Facebook, I would say, yes, you were very, very helpful. I felt that I was supported. You know, my batteries were flat.
Re-energised you.
My batteries were flat, but you know, doing pieces to camera and you know, talking with people on Facebook, it kept me going. I wanted to keep going for them. Yeah, because it was important what we were doing for their future. You know, people were helping us. You know, the generations before helped us. It was our duty to pass that on. I was not going to stop.
You suffered for long enough.
You know, people were saying no to me. I'm thinking, I'm not taking no for an answer. And that's what's keeping me going, and it's still keeping me going. You know, I'm thinking of future generations. I'm thinking of the kids here. You know, I want people to, you know, be able to go home, enjoy their lives, and you know, come back and, you know, but we've got lockdowns, haven't we? So in that time, you know, we had to move quick. It was agreed because at 11 o'clock we were meeting up in London, 4 or 5 of us, and then a lot of other people started to join us as we were walking. So we walked over the bridge, and Downing Street was just round the corner. You know, I don't know if you've been to London yourself. I thought Downing Street would be open and you could walk in. No, I was mistaken. It was a large set of black gates, and I'm thinking, oh, I can't go any further. You know, and there was myself, and there was another guy walking, and we had our petition, and we were trying to get in, and we were pulling it forward and saying, you know, we need to. I want to stay. This is where I want to stay, and this is what, you know. I just want to have a look at Downing Street and let them know that we are here. You know, but there was a security guard there with a very big gun, and I thought, I'm not moving. So the person next to me said, we need to move. I thought, I'm not moving. I'm not moving. He had a face mask on. I didn't have a clue what he was saying. Inside I was shaking. I was absolutely shaking. But it was very quiet. It was a quiet protest. We stood there, and finally, people started to take pictures.
How long were you there for?
It felt like I was.
I was just so taken aback by it. You know, I felt like I wanted to go, I wanted to leave, but when things settled down and we stood our ground and we thought, you know what, this really is worth it. We're finally having that recognition. The photographers were there. We're on the news. We're recognised. Finally, that was the impact. The final thing. They were finally listening to us.
So it worked.
Yeah, I have to say a massive thank you to them for standing firm in solidarity with us. You know, throughout the walk as well, we did raise £1,200. We got 1,200 letters as well. So, oh my gosh. As you know, looking at that in terms of English and typing them out and having them, getting addresses and names and so on, and texts, it was, my phone was going off all the time, you know. One of my colleagues was absolutely knackered because her phone was going off all the time. She never slept at all, never, not a wink because her phone was going off all the time whilst we were doing this. And typing them up, getting all those addresses sorted out and sent off, so poor her, So we're only a small team, only a few of us. We'd ask for volunteers. Volunteers were coming and setting tables up, getting stuff printed off, We had 1,200 letters. We did not expect such a volume, For me, it was amazing. 1,200. So when we finally arrived, we had a negotiation with Downing Street's security detail. We thought we could actually hand deliver these letters, but they said no, because of coronavirus restrictions, the police were not letting us go through to actually hand deliver these letters.
So what did you do?
Well, kind of toddled over to the post office, got them all weighed and stamped. We all had to put our hands in our pockets and pay for these letters, 1,200 of them. It was a marvellous experience, One thing that really disappoints me,
What was that, Lynn?
we had not a single reply from the government. From all those letters we sent, from all the information we sent to them, we had not a jot back from the government. That absolutely frustrated me beyond belief. And for me, it was like, okay, judicial review. I'm going to take you to court and challenge you.
Okay, wow, that's amazing, Lynn. I just want to go back a little bit. You talked about networking and bringing people in to support you. Was it easy to do, or?
For those who wanted to offer the help, that was amazing. We had so many offers, organisations, individuals alike, allies and so on. We had so many people offering their support. A lot of them were unknown to me, which is beautiful.
So did you have a connection with deaf clubs and stuff?
No, they proffered contact. We didn't have to go out at all. It was completely proffered to us. We welcomed this as well. It was absolutely beautiful. It's such a shame, however, that we're at the point we're at. Because of coronavirus, I guess, where we were. Changes are afoot. I think what we must take home message from this is we have the same aim. We need to support one another, regardless of where you are in the UK. We're all here to support one another. Let's be assertive about this, because through that assertion, we can be more unified. And we should listen to each other. That unified support, I think, is a key thing to take home.
Wow. I know you talked about going to court. Tell me a little bit more, Lynn.
Strangely enough, because of coronavirus, we're not allowed to go to court. So the Gloucestershire Deaf Association, GDA, have set up a hall with 30 people through coronavirus and the rules. That was fine. So we went, and we met the First Minister. First of all, we had lots of Zoom meetings, so I kind of had the picture of somebody. I expected this person to be really tall because of the Zoom meeting, and when I met them in person, they were rather short. Really threw me. All day long, I was kind of like blinking to myself, thinking, "You're not what I expected. You're much smaller." But anyway, they sat with us, sat next to me, and he looked and listened, made notes, had consultations, made notes, had consultations. Our collective brain was supporting one another. We were texting our barrister who was in court. We saw on the screen there was 2 interpreters, one on the screen, and they would take in turns. Obviously, the screens would go on and off using Zoom. We had another screen with us on. We had the judge, quite a tough judge, I have to say, rather scary. Then we had the government solicitor on another screen. So there was, it was stressful. I have to say, it was stressful, because of language issues. You'd look at somebody, see what they said, not understand them, have a conversation with the solicitor who would then kind of elucidate matters. We'd then go back to the deaf audience to kind of, shall we say, almost relay that information.
Right, so they were using lots of jargon, lots of legal terminology.
Yeah. A lot of time I was thinking, what are you talking about? That's how I felt. It's different if you have a larger screen, when you're in the actual thing live, face to face, and we showed you where you were, but the judge, I think there was over 200 on the Zoom meeting. So obviously you see the list of names, people we've never seen before, and they've never had that before. The judge was taken aback by that.
Yeah, so a lot of people wanting to watch.
Yeah. Obviously in court, you may have family members who are supporting you and so on, but because of the technology, we had so many people, they're all commenting, you know?
Ooh, that gives you
Yeah.
strength, doesn't it? That gives you
Yeah.
strength.
You know, I think from that's where changes were afoot.
So what happened? Was a decision made by the judge?
Deliberations took place, and lots of debate, I have to say. The judge was trying to clarify matters, look at details, giving examples and so on. For example, they said, why not have an interpreter in the room? What was the case against that? No, if there's technology to support it, blah, 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 why could you not have an interpreter in the room? So they were looking at what the difference would be, you know, for us having somebody in vision or in the room. They were saying, what is the difference in that? For me, of course, you know, it's that connectivity, that belonging, that sense of knowing that we're part of it and we're thought of rather than an extra thought. There's the interpreter on the screen, for example. That's when we'll come to with that. There was no evidence to support this. This is the first time in courts and the rights actually kind of came through. So the judge was lacking on previous legal points to refer to. I think it got to about 5:30. It should have been finishing at 4, over until about 5:30, and the judge made the decision that it needed to be adjourned and for him to go and consider.
So how long did that take? How long did you have to wait, Lynne?
So June 16th to July 28th. A long time. We sat there, literally biting our nails that entire time. You know, completely on edge, walking on eggshells, constantly checking your phone, all the time wondering what's going on, you know. It got on my nerves.
So how would they let you know? Would it be an email or?
The judge said that the solicitor will find out a week before. But the judge made a decision about the letter, how it would be delivered, that the solicitors were not allowed to tell us for that week. They were then informed us of a date and time on the 28th of July at 10 o'clock. So for a week I knew the decision was there. I knew time was coming towards us, you know. But I was sweating. I was waking up in the middle of the night, you know, thinking, right, okay, I'm just waiting.
How stressful is that?
Yeah. You know, the sense of onerosity about it was great, because if we hadn't won, what would we do? You know, who'd be responsible? I felt like I failed the entire community.
I understand that. Yeah, I do understand that. And if you'd lost, it would have failed in your expectations.
We'd raised a lot of money. We'd made many a challenge. At the same time, I'd gone through a difficult year. Let's not forget that coronavirus was a difficult year for everybody. On top of which, we were raising money, raising awareness, and we were also going out there, making sure that we were heard. The government knew we were challenging them, you know?
Which is important.
There were some MPs who were actually questioning this in Parliament, using sign language, actually signing, why is there no interpreters? So I think the government was rather shocked by that. And oftentimes the response was, we'll respond to that later, and then we were kind of, no, we won't respond to now.
I remember, what was that woman's name? Was it Dawn something? It was out, I saw it on Facebook. Dawn? Was it Dawn? She was an MP herself, from down south. She posted something on Facebook.
There was a couple actually. And from that I felt gratitude. You know, finally somebody is listening to us, is taking a stance. You know, there was more of awareness. You know, for us that was an achievement. You know, they knew about us finally. You know, the public knew about us, the general public as well. So I think that was crucial.
So when you found out the decision, what happened?
It's strange because, you know, for your court, when you think about court, you think of the guilty, not guilty kind of thing. And it wasn't the case. Judicial review has a whole heap of different sections they have to go through, and outcomes and possibilities. Have we won or not? To win? I'm not too sure. The government said the government were in breach, and they were in fact discriminating against us. Katie Jones said, and they were happy about that. So, talking about having somebody in the room alongside the Prime Minister or whatever, they said you have to either or, either in vision or. I think the terminology was rolling, but they had to consider what and where and how they're going to do the interpreter, you know. I think for me what was important, it had to be taken into consideration for our benefit. It couldn't be an afterthought. We were not to be an afterthought. It was something that should be thought in the plans to begin with, the pre-planning stages, to ensure that access is available for those people who require it, because access is crucial. So without that, clearly a case of discrimination.
So were you pleased that they came to that ruling? Did you feel that was a win, and that things would change? What happened, Lynne? Can you elaborate?
Afterwards, we were discussing whether the interpreter would be in the room or not. We were looking at provision, and I think it was 4 months or 6 months they were allowed to make changes. Currently, for those changes, I don't see them taking place, but we've got some power there. We have it there in black and white. The judge has dictated that the government can't repeat behaviours they've done previously. So that's one thing I think we've gained a bit of power through from the judicial review. The judge is now aware of us and know what we do. So if the government does do it again, they would be clearly stupid to do that. They can take it back to them and say, we have it in writing through the judicial review that you should not be doing that. That's why in terms of the phase that we're looking at now, the judicial review is completed. We're going through a private compensation claim, because I don't think that's good enough. We need more. We're here for accessibility, okay, for access. We have 250 deaf people who have made a complaint, a formal complaint, completed the forms.
That's a lot of complaints.
And they link back to last year having no interpreter on ITN or social network or any of them. Yep, 250 people have made a formal complaint about that period of time when we had no interpreting access whatsoever. Clark Ash and myself were leading along with 250 people's complaints. Currently, it's called, we're going to have a mini trial to begin with to see if the judge can bring things together and match them up, to check if there's sufficient evidence to then go to trial. That will be the next step. We're waiting for that to come through. I think, well, in terms of compensation, I'm not really looking for money. We're damaged enough, and time is now to stop that. We hope in future, people will think twice, that there could be litigation involved if we are this afterthought, this second thought. From that judicial review, it's given us the legal stance to look at a max case of the lack of interpreters. So, if you recall the little mixed case as well, which is currently going through, so and that was one. So another piece of legal backing to us. So we can say that that 2-week period when there's no interpreter access, that's where we're damaged from. That's the next step.
So really, I think this is the first. This is groundbreaking, and I think people will be able to, take this forward.
No, we're not done.
For future events.
I think for me, clearly the next thing to do is our own BSL Act. That's where the BDA is being really supportive at the moment, going through all that work with us. I'm pleased that they are working with other organisations to fight for that. We need it, clearly. We've had enough. We've now got the power, the policy, we've got the legal backing to protect our language, so therefore we can make challenges in a better stance. We've been fighting for many, many a year, going around in circles, If you look across the UK, it's still there, barriers are still in place. When are they going to stop? How do we challenge things? Hopefully, we'll shake a few people's cages with this. It's sad. But hopefully, we have now less legal backing to support us. Scotland have had it. Great to them. Wales are in the process for BSL. Act, great to them. What about us? It's our time.
Actually, that reminds me of 2003. Does it remember when the language was recognised? The 18th of March, I think. So really, having it cited there hasn't really given us the power.
No. Not at all. It's not powerful enough. We need an act, legislation.
Okay. To back us up. I'd like to actually open it up to the floor. Has anybody got any questions? One question that's come through from the floor. What are you hoping to happen here? Is it going to be a quick fix, or will it be taking a long time to make these changes?
Planning is key. How we move forward from now. The government, we don't know what they're doing with their plans. Having the information from the judge that kind of backs us up, we have that there to support us. Obviously, if things happen again, as it did happen in that 2-week period, we can refer them back to what the judge has said from the judicial review.
So that's a positive thing, isn't it? You've taken the first step.
But we're not done. There's a lot more work to be done, you know. This is all under the guise of coronavirus. Who knows what's going to happen in the future, you know? Will we have another pandemic, you know? Another illness will make start. We may have an earthquake, you know, climate issues are getting worse. You know, I'm worried about that. How do we get that information as quickly as possible? That is a concern of mine. That is a fear, in fact. We can't, you know, be constantly raising money and campaigning. This shouldn't be our life. You know, it should be done automatically. It should be provided within their pre-planning. I have fears for future generations.
And also, like you say, we worry about the next generation and how they're going to access the information. Lynne, thank you. I'd like to say thank you for coming. I'm sure everybody has got a better understanding of what journey you've been through. You know, and thank you for your time.
Very welcome.